My name's Mollie Gugler. I'm the College Archivist, and I'm very happy today to be with Mr. Herald Harrington, a member of the current governing board. And as I was just telling you, Mr. Harrington, I don't know a lot about the governing board, but I know that you have a real unique perspective on the college. There's very few people who are on the governing board or who have ever been on the governing board of a college. So I'm sure you see things from a point of view that most of us are not even aware of. But I'd really like to get to know a little bit about you personally.
Okay.
So can you tell us a little bit about your background, before you came to be on the board?
On the college? Sure. I started out in Missouri. I grew up on a farm in Missouri, farm boy. Joined the Air Force in 1977. Mainly I wanted to work my way through college. I wanted to be independent. So I took off on my own, came out to Arizona. The Air Force sent me to Luke Air Force Base in Arizona. I was there for 6 years. During that time I started going through Glendale Community College, and the Community College of the Air Force were the opportunities that I saw as to get my education started. So that kind of clues in probably for you why I'm a big supporter of the community college system, because that was really my only opportunity to get into higher education at the time. So did a lot of work at Glendale Community College over the 6 years I was in the Air Force. Got out of the Air Force, finished my bachelor's degree with a college called Park College, which is a college that operates on a lot of Air Force bases, a lot of military bases around the country. They're actually based not too far from where I grew up in Parkville, Missouri. And then after that I went to work for a company called Unidynamics. We did research and development for the military, weapons research, that sort of thing, down in Goodyear, Arizona. And after that, during my time at Unidynamics, I finished my bachelor's degree and then went to work for a company called Arizona Instruments. It was an environmental monitoring equipment company. We actually manufactured environmental monitoring equipment in the old high school in Jerome for a number of years. So I worked there for a number of years, ran manufacturing, became vice president of manufacturing for the corporation. Then went back to school, went to NAU, and did a master's degree in business at NAU because I was transitioning into the business that I'm involved with now. My wife and I own Bent River Machine over in Clarkdale, Arizona. We're an engineering, design, and fabrication firm. We build factory automation equipment for companies. Robots, handlers, pick-and-place equipment, everything from assembling sprinkler heads to missiles, and everything in between.
Wow.
So about the time in the late 90s, I decided that I'd been pretty focused on, when you're in the military, that's about all you've got time to do when you're going to school, working your way through school. I decided that it was time for me to seek an opportunity to help support the institutions that had been so good for me. So a friend of mine, Steve Anderson, was on the board at the time and was planning on not running for the board again. So I decided that I'd run for the board and see what happened. And I ran in, I guess it was 98, 97, 98. This is my 12th year, so it would be 98.
You've been on the board for 12 years?
Next year, 2010.
Wow.
Would be my 12th year. So that's kind of what brought me here. I'm a firm believer in the community college system. I lived the community college system. Would never have completed higher education at all were it not for the community college system in Arizona, period.
Well, that's great to hear. So, how does a person become a board member?
You take a deep breath, and you have to run for the position. This is an elected position because the board of the college has financial responsibilities to the taxpayers. We actually set tax rates. So it is an elected position. You run in the general election. for your district. There are 5 districts in Yavapai County for the Yavapai College Governing Board. I'm District 5, which is basically the Verde Valley, most of the Verde Valley. So you, just like any other elected official, you fill out the paperwork, you go collect signatures to get on the ballot, and then you run in the general election. You're on the ballot. It's an unpaid position, but you still, because you have financial and fiduciary responsibilities to the taxpayers, you have to be elected to the position. So that's how you do it.
Wow, I appreciate you being on the board for so long. I mean, it's obvious, since it's an unpaid position, that you have a lot of commitment and passion to education.
Yeah, I think all of us on the board believe in the community college system. We have a deep belief in Yavapai College and the good work that the folks here at the college do, and we're willing to invest the time and everything that goes with that to support the college in any way we can. And that's it is definitely a community service that we perform, and it has, as with anything like that, there are times when it's easier than others. It's always a pretty hard responsibility. You know, there are a lot of things that we have to deal with that are, you know, we are responsible for offering educational opportunities to all the citizens of Yavapai County, and that's a tough job. You know, fortunately, we have a great institution to do it, but it challenges us, especially in the days like today where the state is continually not funding education.
Well, also the job markets have changed over the years, and what employers are expecting people coming on board to know, the skills, the education.
I believe that as we go forward as a society, education becomes more and more and more important. I mean, it used to be kind of the floor level was a high school diploma. It's becoming that you have to have some higher education in a vast majority position these days to even understand what's going on. Technology has gotten so complex.
Yeah. So you've touched on some of this already. What are the most important qualities, do you think, for a board member to be successful?
Yeah, that was an interesting question. The most important qualities, in my opinion, are being able to step back from issues and really look at things from all sides and try to understand all the constituencies involved and understand as many points of view as possible before you start the process of thinking about solutions. It's very, very easy when you're dealing with large, complex issues to jump to the conclusion stage too early. And when you're dealing with a fundamental part of people's lives like we do, you know, offering them education opportunities that will help them support their families, you really need to take the time to try to understand the effect that these decisions will have on people, and all the people, from the internal community to the students, to the taxpayers, to the relationships we have with other institutions and other entities in the state. You have to really think about all those things before you start the process of thinking about conclusions. Fortunately, we have excellent staff people that bring us the information and work really hard to get us the information we need to be able to deliberate and make these decisions. So we're fortunate as a board to have those resources available to us.
I can imagine, with the county being so huge, 8,000 square miles, the needs of someone, say, in Seligman are probably different than someone in Prescott or Clarkdale or Sedona. I can see how that would be a real challenge for you.
It is. I mean, you want to be able to do everything you can for everybody, and we go out and try to understand what the needs of these communities are. We try to have our board meetings around the county. We'll have community dialogue sessions around the county throughout the year just trying to understand what the unique needs of these groups of people are, and then we come back and deliberate on how can we, service these folks and make sure they have the opportunities that they deserve. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it's a huge county. You can almost drive. You can drive a better part of half a day and not get out of this county. It's amazing, larger than more than one state.
Yeah, it is huge. Are there any other volunteer roles or public offices that you've participated in?
I've done volunteer work my whole life on some degree or another. I have never held an elected office other than this, nor will I ever.
Okay.
I mean, it's not. It is a. You have to really believe in what you're doing to take the time to do this. So I've never run for office in any capacity other than this.
Uh-huh. Well, I appreciate the fact that you did. I appreciate what you've done. Okay, when I look at the governing board, I know that you set the budget for the academic year, and I really don't know a lot more of what you do. Could you tell us what the role of a board member is?
The board as a whole is responsible for the operations of the entire institution. We are responsible to the taxpayers to ensure that everything this institution does, it does in a cost-effective, efficient manner, and that we are meeting the needs of the owners of this institution. And the people that own this place
Mm-hmm.
are the taxpayers of Yavapai County. That's what the board's responsibility is. There is nothing that happens in this institution that isn't in some way directly tied to a level of responsibility that we have. Now, obviously, the board cannot be involved in almost any of these things on a day-to-day basis, right? I mean, we're volunteers. We're not educational professionals. We are not human resource professionals. We are interested citizens. So what we do as a board is we hire and monitor the performance of the president. And we delegate to the president the responsibility for operating this institution. And we monitor key performance measures, and we constantly look at, we're monitoring these issues, we're monitoring these phenomena, and measuring them and seeing, is the institution accomplishing what it's supposed to be accomplishing? And then we hold the president accountable for that. Mm-hmm. That's our main job, is to hire and monitor the performance of the president. There is, to us, no difference between the president's performance and the institution's performance. Those are the same thing to us from a board perspective. Mm-hmm. So that's our main job. Now, we try to make sure that every year, in January, we have our January board work session and retreat where we look at all the things we've been monitoring, we look at all the results of that and say, do we need to fine-tune this? Or is there something that we're not really tracking as carefully as we should? Is this the right thing to be looking at? So we're constantly looking at the things we're looking at and measuring and monitoring to make sure that we're looking at the right things. That's our main job. And then we have to, of course, like you said, approve. By statute, there are certain things that we have to do. Mm-hmm. Approve the budget. Some of those sort of things we have to do directly. But most of the day-to-day, or almost pretty much all the day-to-day operation of the institution, we delegate to the president. And then he puts a team together to execute that. We set what we call end statements that say this is what this institution exists for, and this is what we will accomplish because we exist. Mm-hmm. And we have a limited number, 4 or 5, that we review every year and say, and then we look at that very carefully throughout the year and say, are we accomplishing this? And that's what we do. We set policy.
So when you came on the board 12 years ago, were you handed a manual that said, this is how you be a board member, or was it kind of on-the-job training?
It's pretty much on-the-job training. We've tried since that time to become a little more sophisticated in the training we give to new board members and the support we give to new board members, because it is, you have no idea until you start doing this what the job really is.
Mm-hmm.
So we have training program. We have certain support documents we give to new board members. We have a mentoring program where a new board member has an existing board member that they can interface with to get questions answered. So we try to spin board members up as quickly as they can, because they have to hit the ground running. I mean, we don't have any new board members coming on in January, but when you come on the board in January, you're expected to vote on issues at the meeting. I mean, it starts. And the first of the year, there's a lot of important things going on. So we do training. We have changed the way we manage, or the way we operate the institution from the board level. We've gone away from, when I came on the board, we had a board policy and procedure manual that was literally that thick, and took days and days and days to read, and when you got done reading it, you really didn't understand what it said anyway. Mm-hmm. So we have worked diligently over the last probably 7 years on the policy governance model, which means what I just described to you earlier. We stay focused on measuring the performance of the president and the institution, and it is the president's responsibility to write the procedures and the operating documents to operate this institution. We do not have the skills or the time to do those operating type of documents and processes. We monitor performance and set policy. We decide this is what this institution needs to accomplish, and then we say, you go figure out how to do that, and we're going to measure your progress doing that.
Well, it sounds like you have more than enough to do. But are there any outside expectations for board members? I mean, does the position come with the realization that, besides monitoring the president, that you'll be doing these other things also?
We do. I mean, we have a responsibility to stay in communication with the communities, the owners. Our primary responsibility is to the owners of this institution, the taxpayers. So we have a responsibility to go out and meet with them, communicate with them, get their input, understand what their issues are. That comes with the job, and we do that through meetings around the county throughout the year. The other things are just, there are activities that go on politically that we are involved in. We have to be cognizant of what's happening down at the state and even at the federal level. We're involved in trying to make sure that Yavapai College is represented to these people and they understand what the college is here for, what we're accomplishing, and encouraging them to support the institution. Mm-hmm. So that's the political aspect of it that we're involved in.
Does that mean that you actually have to go down and sit in on legislative
we do occasionally.
Sessions?
Yes, actually Dr. Horton and our board chair, I think, are going to Washington next week to meet with some folks in D.C. to talk about the community college system in Arizona and seeking support, and so that's part of what we do.
So it's not just
coming to the
board meetings.
It's more than that.
Are there any associations that a board member needs to be involved in?
There are two. There are two main organizations. There's the Arizona Association of District Governing Boards. That's an association that all the governing boards in the state have, and we're members of that. And we have a representative on our board that attends those meetings and then comes back to the rest of the board and informs us what's going on. Mm-hmm. Dr. Dale Fitzner is our representative this year. So, and that brings a lot of good best practice information in, other ideas, what are other people doing, what's working, what isn't working. So we stay involved in that. There's also a national organization called the Association of Community College Trustees, the NAACCT.
Mm-hmm.
That's the national organization that we stay involved in, and we use them. We'll bring contract with them from time to time to bring in professionals in a specific area as a consulting to the board, helping us if we're doing planning or training for certain issues with the board. We'll bring in an AACT person to help us with certain activities. There are conferences, national conferences. Most of the board went to the national conference in San Francisco. I think that was in October this year. And then some of the board members are going to a federal legislative conference in Washington, D.C. in February. And then we have another national conference in Toronto in October. So we have conferences, and those basically are big meetings where there will literally be hundreds and hundreds of board members there, and you try to network with them. They do presentations. You go at the conference before the one in San Francisco, which was in Manhattan early last year. We actually presented at that conference. Our board did.
What did you present on?
We presented on kind of the history of Yavapai College, some of the things that happened to us a number of years ago when things didn't go well, what we did to recover from that. You know, every institution goes through good times and bad times, and it's not, ignoring that process is you do at your detriment. There are always things to learn from situations. So one of the things we do at conferences is we try to put out information that says this is what we learned, and we go to other people's presentations and find out what they learned and try to get together and have time to talk to other trustees and learn from their experience. There are people, I've been on this board almost 12 years, there are people that I talk to at these national conferences that have been on boards for 40 years.
Wow.
And these people are amazing, just to be able to have the time to talk to them for 10 minutes is invaluable.
Probably a little battle scarred too.
It's an interesting job.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to focus back on you. What challenges have you had to face being on the board?
Oh boy, finding the time to do it is always tough. Most of what we do is done outside the board. We have to. We get a lot of information and that we have to deliberate on. And all the decisions and the board dialogue happens at the meeting. But we have to prepare ourselves for this. There's usually the board book will be somewhere around 200 pages. And we have to understand all this stuff and come to the board meeting prepared to deliberate on it and vote on some of these things. So finding the time and fitting it in is difficult. The learning process is always difficult. It is completely different from anything that you would do in your life. So just learning what your responsibilities are, how to conduct yourself properly. The thing that when you come into a board position that you don't understand, most people, is the effect that you will have on people in the institution. You know somebody and you talk to them and they, to you, you're still the same person, but now if you're on the board and they work for this institution, your relationship with them has changed. And the things you say matter more than they did. So you have to be aware of that and make sure you don't say things that make people uncomfortable. Things that you would just say in the course of casual conversation may be inappropriate if you're a board member. So you have to learn how to conduct yourself properly. You want to support the institution. You don't ever want to give people the impression that that you're not supporting them in what they're doing. The board has no responsibility or authority on individual people in the institution. Like I said, we monitor the president. That is our one statutory employee. That is our responsibility. So you just have to learn those things. Other things you'll learn.
Well, you've had enough history with the college that I'm sure the board has had to face some difficult things.
Sure.
Could you just talk a little bit about some of those challenges?
Yeah, we went through, let's see, it's probably 6 years or so ago, the time when, the administration of the college and the board lost the confidence of the internal community. They did not believe, some of us felt wrongly, that we were not doing our job properly. There were a lot of misunderstandings. When you start experiencing a level of uncertainty in the organization, whether people are operating in a completely forthright manner, it's very difficult to recover from that. And we ultimately ended up having to replace the president because of that. We were measuring what we thought were the right things with the former president and monitoring those things, and there were some things that we weren't monitoring that we should have been. So we learned. And at the same time, during that period of time, one of the things that was very confusing for all of us is we were right in the middle of changing to the policy governance model. So that made people very uncomfortable. They did not understand. We weren't doing things the same way we had always done them. The terminology changed. We were talking about in-statements and monitoring reports and things that people really didn't understand, and we didn't understand them either. We were learning them. So there was a lot of change going on at the board level because we were trying to say, look, we cannot be involved in the day-to-day operations of this institution. We are not skilled, we are not trained, we are not educational professionals. This is what we do. We adopted the policy governance model, and for a year or two while we were trying to really learn it, there was a lot of discomfort, and it wasn't managed very well by the administration or the board. We did lots of stupid things. I mean, if I only do 10 stupid things today, it'll be a good day. We're just people. We do the best we can. But it got to the point where the college internal community, and it started affecting the external community, the owners. And we had to replace the president, and we had a lot of work to do. It was a tough time. This is one of those jobs that when you're doing well, nobody knows you exist, and really most people don't care because it's doing what it should do, and that's really what you're shooting for. When you're in the paper, it's usually not a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So we've had our ups and downs, but all institutions go through them, and you just learn from them and make sure that you put in the processes to learn from your mistakes and move on.
I know for myself, being the archivist and looking back through the history of the college, I'll see how certain things will come and go and repeat themselves. And when I see it coming again, I think, oh no,
Right.
We're going to go through that again.
It's almost a cyclic thing. I mean, when I came on the board, my first term, it was at the end of the previous cycle of chaos. What people sometimes refer to as the Walker era. A lot of confusion, a lot of chaos, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of distrust. That was kind of dying down when I came on, and then we went along, and then we had another period of that. I'm really hoping that the next one will be far enough out there that I'm not involved in it.
Right.
We're working as hard as we can to prevent it.
We can hope that it won't happen again.
Right. Fortunately, we have a president that right now that I don't think you'd ever see anything like that happen. We were very fortunate in recruiting Jim Horton to this position.
I have been totally impressed with him.
Yeah, he's been.
I feel really good about him in his leadership role.
He does good work.
Yeah. So, after all that, do you have any advice for anyone who wants to run for a board position?
Advice. Things to contemplate. It takes a lot of time. You have to balance that against the other things that you have to invest your time in your life. You know, you are going to invest a significant amount of your, quote, free time in this job. There's no doubt about it. The other thing that I think people need to be aware of is that when you take this position, because you're an elected official, you assume a very large personal liability for a lot of things. And some of those things are, you know, you have organizational ways of protecting yourself personally, and other things you cannot. You are personally liable for some things, and you have to be aware of that. So I think people need to make sure they understand that, and good resources for that is, if anybody's thinking about taking this job on, go talk to Tim Carter. Tim Carter, the county superintendent of schools, knows this stuff inside out and is an absolute treasure of information about how boards operate, what the responsibilities are, how to do the process. Even here's the people you talk to put your election packet if you want to run. He's absolutely phenomenal, and I would advocate that anybody that's interested in doing this job go talk to him and his staff.
Give me an example of what one of the personal liabilities would be.
Well, you can be personally sued by somebody that's dissatisfied by your performance, and in certain situations, you are personally liable for that.
So would you need to defend yourself? Would you need to hire yourself a lawyer?
Absolutely.
And that would not fall under
Correct.
the college or...
Right. There are certain areas where you are personally liable. The college has no ability to pay for any of that. So you could be facing some of these situations, if you look at situations people have got into, maybe sometimes through bad judgment, sometimes just through ignorance. It takes hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend yourself these days, and that can happen to you. So you have to be aware of it and at least understand the risks. Nobody should take this position and not understand that, and be willing to accept that as part of what comes with the deal.
Well, you're giving me a much greater appreciation of what you have agreed to do to step into a board position. So I admire what you have done much more now that you've given us some idea of it. Let's change the focus a little bit and talk about community colleges in general. I know from what you said, you're a community college, you had been a community college student yourself. What do you think are some of the merits of community colleges?
I think the community college system is probably one of the best ideas this country's ever had. I think that it probably has a more fundamental effect on the citizens of this country than anybody truly appreciates. The idea that we are committed as a society to offer higher education opportunities to all of our citizens where they live was unheard of in the history of the world until this country started it. It was such a phenomenally unique idea that it took a while for people to really understand how fundamentally that changes everything. And I think it does fundamentally change our society. We, to our citizens, are committed to offering them the ability to get higher education where they live, and our mission is to do it in a convenient, cost-effective manner. That's different, and that I believe is a fundamental victory that we need to be proud of in this country. Is it perfect? No. Could we all do a better job? Absolutely. Are there opportunities in the future to improve this process? You bet. That's why I'm on this board, is to try to figure out how to move forward with this basically phenomenally wonderful system and make it better. That's why we're all here. That people need us desperately in these economic times, but all the time they need us. I would not, like I said earlier, I would not have sought higher education if it was not for the community college system. Absolutely would not have. Wouldn't have had the opportunity. And in a lot of societies, the concept that the unwashed masses can have those opportunities is foreign to them. You know, it is not foreign to us. We believe in it.
Yeah. Well, what are you most proud of that you've been able to do to strengthen the college or just community colleges in general?
I am proud of a lot of the things this institution has accomplished. You know, I won't accept, you know, pride in anything I have done, because everything that I have done has been in the, you know, the umbrella of this group of people as a team trying to accomplish something together. But we have accomplished a lot. And if you, as the archivist for this college, going back and looking from day one in the 60s to today, look at what we have accomplished as a group of people.
Yeah, it's tremendous.
And there are people here that started back then still. You know, I mean, there are people in this community that were part of that initial process. People like we were talking about earlier. So we've accomplished a lot. Particularly some of the things that I'm particularly proud of. I'm very proud of the fact that a few years ago we were able to get the state to transfer the assets of the community colleges back, the ownership of them back to the counties. Up until it's probably been 4 years ago, the state owned all of these assets. The community colleges were primarily paid for by the citizens of the counties. All of the bonds, all of the construction costs were pretty much paid for by the citizens of the counties, and the state took ownership of them. We were able to change that a few years ago and transfer the ownership of the assets back to the people that paid for it. I think that was a big win. It gives us the ability to manage these assets properly for the citizens instead of having to go to the state and ask their permission to do it because they were their buildings. Now we are responsible to the people that own them, and that's a much more rational process.
Did you have to have legislation passed
Yes.
to do that?
Yes. We
Did the community colleges in the state band together to have that done, or did Yavapai move forward with that?
A lot of the community colleges spent a good bit of time on it. We spent quite a bit of time on it at Yavapai College because we felt strongly about it at the time and felt like it was a pretty dysfunctional system. I mean, literally, if we wanted to update or change a building, we had to load up, go down there, do a presentation, and ask permission from the state to do it. It was madness, and we finally got that stopped. So that was a big win for everybody, and we managed to pull that off before we started most of the master plan construction, because it would have been an absolute nightmare to get anything done. So I feel very proud about that. I just feel generally proud. You know, we have been growing the student body in this college at a phenomenal rate for years, you know, 10-15% a year. I mean, we've been going out and offering the opportunities to people in a way that they can take advantage of them. I'm tremendously proud of that. When I started with the board, you know, this institution basically was here, and about half of what's on the Verde campus right now, and that was it. You know, we had no campus in Sedona. We had no campus in Chino Valley. We had no new buildings over here. I mean, everything in the last 12 years, I look around and see how much this institution has changed. I'm very proud of that. You know, I'm proud of the citizens when we ran the bond election, that we carried every district in the county. The support we had was phenomenal, and it was the largest bond ever passed by a rural community college in this state.
$69.5 million.
$69.5 million. And you look around in this room and you see the results of that. And every campus, every office, nothing was not touched by that. And the citizens stepped up and said, we believe in this, and we're going to fund that, and we're going to make it happen. And I'm tremendously proud of that. And I'm proud of that the institution has been able to perform on that.
I know each campus and center has its own emphasis. I'm just curious if you feel a special bond with CTEK, knowing of your own business background.
Right. CTEK was one of those opportunities that Jim Horton seems to be able to pull out of the hat from time to time. As you know, the Ruger Corporation was obsoleting that facility. That was their old foundry. And they came to the community college and offered us that property for less than the value of the land it was setting on. I mean, it was almost a donation that the Ruger folks did. And Jim and his staff figured out a way for us to come up with the money to buy it, and it's been a phenomenal success. I mean, John Morgan has put together programs out there that are just helping people learn things that make their life better. And it's been just, yes, it has a warm spot in my heart. But all of the campuses, they all have their own unique flavor. The Chino Valley facility, I always enjoy going out there with the greenhouse. And
oh, yeah, that's tremendous.
And coming here and looking around at this campus, how beautiful it is now. It was a nice place to come before, but it had some real issues. You know, it wasn't inviting. It looked, the buildings were built in the 70s, and they looked very institutional. The grounds were not inviting, and we fixed all of that. And what we did over in the Verde Valley, the new buildings over there, you can't go on a site in this community college district and just not be proud of what people are doing every day. It's just I enjoy it tremendously.
And I think also the breadth of programs that the college offers too is just phenomenal. You think about Sedona, nationally known filmmaking school. Chino, like you said, the Ag Center out there. That's cutting edge.
Yes.
That's tremendous. And then CTEK and all the other facilities. And to think that we're just a community college.
Yeah.
Well,
community colleges are interesting critters. I think there are about 550,000 people in higher education in the state of Arizona at any given time. 85% of them are in the community college system. The numbers are what the community college system does to educate people is most people have no idea. We educate more people than we have more students than all the universities combined by times 10. I mean, ASU now is over a 50,000 student body, one of the biggest universities. The Maricopa County Community College District probably has 10 times that number. I mean, well, maybe not 10 times, but they have hundreds of thousands of students. So the community college system is a large educational provider, the largest, without doubt, in the state by a large margin.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a sticky question here.
Okay.
Considering the current economy and legislators' views towards education, have you been able to work with any legislators or leaders to improve education?
Education funding in the state of Arizona seems to be viewed by most of the legislatures, and there are a few critical exceptions to this, but in the main as a cookie jar, that if they have a problem they solve by taking cookies out of that jar because it doesn't typically cost them anything politically. People, believe in the community college system, but they also know that we will do whatever it takes to make this happen, no matter what. And time after time after time, that's what we prove. So it's an easy decision for legislatures to basically defund education in the state, and it has gone on. When I came on Well, let's go back farther than that. When the community college system, when the deal came down for community colleges in Arizona in the late 60s, the deal was the local taxpayers would pay half and the state would fund half the cost of the community college system. The state has never funded half, ever. When I came on the board, we were at about 20% state funding, and I thought that was abysmal and was horrified that we were at that level. Right now, we are probably, the next round of cuts that we receive will put us probably under 6 or 7%. So the amount of funding we directly get from the state has almost become negligible, that it isn't, it's several $1 million, but we have a $75 million budget, and the state has consistently transferred the responsibility of funding the community college system to the local taxpayers. That has been what has happened year after year after year, and it is continuing today. And I can only repeat that how much I appreciate the local taxpayers being willing to support higher education in this state and especially in this county, because without them we would have no community college system in this state. The state would have killed it years ago. So it is the local folks that make this thing work. And are we going to be able to do anything about that in the long run? Can we elevate our visibility to the state? We certainly try, and we talk to them, and Dr. Horton has some plans for helping us engage politically. Part of the problem with the community college system is we're all out here doing the best we can in our counties, and we don't present a common face to the legislature. We've Governor Napolitano had toward the end of her term, before she went to Washington, had put together a group of community college people to try to put a committee together at the state level so we could have some common voice. Governor Brewer has kind of started the process of kind of talking about doing that again, but we haven't really accomplished very much with it. So we need to present a more cohesive voice to the politicos and say it really does matter when you do this. You're hurting people and you need to be aware of it. But it's a tough thing.
Besides the monetary fiscal challenges, what other types of challenges do you think community colleges are facing?
It's a really interesting period of time we live in. We are in a period of time where more and more people need us desperately. People need to retrain. People are out of work, and they need opportunities to get jobs that they can support their families. There are enrollment people, more and more and more people are coming to us for the help they need to feed their kids. And at the same time, the state's over here continually and systematically reducing the amount of resources we have to do that. That's hard. That's really hard. And Dr. Horton and his staff are working on it every day, trying, how can we meet the needs and do this, because we don't want anybody to walk away from this institution. There are so many people that need us, and you talk to people in the communities, people that 8-10 months ago were living the middle class lifestyle and are now on the street and don't have a home, don't know how they're going to feed their kids. It is heartbreaking, and those people need us, and we're going to figure out how to do it. I mean, I will guarantee you this institution will stand with those people somehow and figure out how to do it. We are not going to let these people down, but it is hard.
I think that's one of the beauty of community colleges, is that they can change focus a little more quickly than a university can if we see the need and we're able to fill it.
We do it.
Yeah.
Right. We bring in programs. We can offer programs that are current and topical, and every year there are programs that come and there are programs that fade away that are no longer necessary. I mean, we try to respond to what people need. We want to have, our job is to give people the skills they need to make their lives better. And we do try every way we can to do that. That's what we do. And we have people here that are really good at it, and I'm really proud of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, you kind of answered my next question. What's your vision of a community college?
That's it.
Yeah, sounds like it.
We do what it takes to make people's lives better, right where they live. We come to them, they don't need to come to us.
So if you had a crystal ball, what would you like to see the college? How would you like to see the college 10 years from now?
10 years from now? Well, 10 years goes by fast.
I know.
There are some really exciting things that I'd like to talk about in the crystal ball. Things that are happening right now that are on the good side. We have started a process with Northern Arizona University out in Prescott Valley, where we're going to be bringing a much more direct way for people to go right through baccalaureate and upper division degrees right here. We're going to have, there's not going to be any transfer. People will start here. They will be concurrently enrolled at Yavapai College and Northern Arizona University. They'll get a library card at NAU, and they'll take the lower division classes and move right into baccalaureate classes right here. That's going to be a big deal. There are a lot of people that need those upper division degree opportunities, and they cannot go to ASU. They cannot move to U of A. I remember when I did the MBA program at NAU, driving to Flagstaff and back from the Verde Valley every day for a year and a half was a really hard thing to do. It was borderline impossible. So there are just numerous people that we needed to offer those opportunities to, and that's starting to happen. The universities are starting to get it. I'll tell you what has been so frustrating in this state. The universities, they do their thing, and if you don't come to them, they don't care about you. That's starting to change. Dr. Hagar at NAU gets it. John Hagar is a believer in this, and he's the first college president I have ever spoken to that gets it. And he will make this happen, and Dr. Horton, those two guys are going to make this happen. This is the model for the state that's happening out here. And I think it's going to have a tremendous impact on what we can offer to our constituents here in this county in the future. And I think 10 years from now, we're going to look back at the way it is now and go, how could that have been acceptable? What were those people thinking? Obviously you should be able to, complete a baccalaureate degree right here in this county. I mean, it's madness that you couldn't, I think it'll become convenient enough that people will start to take it for granted, and that's what I'm hoping for, and that's what I'm going to work for, that it becomes autopilot for them, and they don't even have to worry about it. I think that's possible, and that's what we're going to work toward. That's on my agenda to work toward.
Great. I think we're almost out of time. Is there anything else you'd like to share that I didn't think to ask you?
Just in general, I want to go, at the end of the day, just to reiterate how proud I am of the people in this institution and the work they do every day to bring these opportunities to people that need it.
Well, thank you.
I'm honored to be associated with this institution, and I'm looking forward to today's meeting.
Good. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.